Hey people, I got sidetracked, but I found some good stuff. About 5 years ago, I did a movie on the Augur. I don't know which one it was. But this Augur, he used to have his face on the money. He was the most important person in town. It was said that he would talk to the birds and the birds would tell him things. And I said that wasn't true. I said it was this lettuce in his hand that told him. And they call this lettuce, they say it's a curved flute that he played. And I said, no, this is the origin of litmus paper. And it was a lichen. And so this tells the soil content, what kind of lichens and what color they are, tells the acid content of soil in the area. He would come out, they would pay him to come out and tell him where to put the garden. And he would tell them that he talks to birds, and the birds tell him this because he didn't want his secrets known, that he was watching the plants growing in the area to give him his knowledge. When I had Googled this 5 years ago, all kinds of money come up with the Augur on it. The Augur was running things. His face was on the money. And there's none of it now. This is all you see is this one picture of an old Augur talking to the birds. And everything else is just filled with fantasy now. If you Google professional builder, what you're going to get is Minecraft these days. The world's coming apart. And so I ran into this while I was looking for information on Sipal. Sipal. And I run into this, and this is the two words. There's only 4 words that have Sipal in them. And that's your principal and your disciple are 2 of them. There's just a few words that end with this sipal, and it was strange how both of these had come up at the same place. So I want to start with something up here so I don't throw anybody off. It was this first line of Mark 14, and I was looking at this word grammatize here. I saw it come up twice in this chapter. But what they call here the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, it's spelled Azuma. But in the Hebrew, it's pretty much backwards. It's the MXUT, the MZOT, the Mazot. And so that's just some more proof that when you see this apostrophe up here, this word's supposed to be read backwards. Musa. The Musa is the unleavened bread. And the Musa Zuma is the unleavened bread feast. But it was this word grammatized that I was looking at. It comes up a lot just before the Pharisee. And so it's, the gramma, and then the T-E-I-S is T-I-Z-E. The E and the Y with this mark tells you to move the E over. So it's E-Y-E-S, eyes, as in your eyes. And so it's pronounced ties, I-Z-E, the grammatize. And so when it comes before the Pharisees, it means to write it into law is what it actually means. To cause something to be required by the rules of grammar, the law. And so it actually means to write it into law. And so I got sidetracked on that word while I was looking up this Sipal. And I assumed that the next time it came up was at the end, so I shot down to the end. So it's by total accident that I run into this. It's the prin, and then this word reads backwards. A-R-O, ara, aratel. The K-E means L. This K-E is L. T-L, and then L. And so aratel, the prin, and doesn't mean before. It comes from prince. It means most important. Aratel, and then electora. And they'll say a electora is a talismanic stone that is supposedly found in the crop of a cock, and it's believed to be magical. And so this is the fantasy part. The crop meaning is gizzard. But an electora is this lichen, and it was the beginning litmus paper. And they all have a tell. They all tell what's going on. And this species is used for monitoring the air quality. You see it growing up in trees. We have a type of it that grows thick in the oak trees down here. You can see plainly that this word for cock, is alector. It comes from the Greek alector. The people that interpret these ancient writings are the same people that's in their mom's basement playing Minecraft Builder and thinking they're professional builders. This was the rooster up here. You see, it ends with the R, and it's the rotel elector, the rooster, and then NE is B in of the phones in, and crowed and phones in, and this was the rooster up here. But then below this, and the Petros, the rock, to Rama more come, to see and more come on the rock. Is where the lichens will grow. And you see they got a whole bunch of different words for Peter too. Petri, the Petro, the Petron, the Petros, and the Petru. And so this arrow here means that these two words were turned around in half of the Bibles. And so it lets you know that the prin, the most important, aratel, electora, with the A on there. The elector, the air quality. And then phone has say, the F-O-N-E, and then the N moves over the phone and say, and then it's distrise. And distrise is where your word district comes from, and it means to divide it up. In this word disciple, they'll say it comes from learn, but the dis actually means to spread, as in dissect, divide it up. One who embraces and assists in spreading, the dis is the spread. And the principle, is coming from the prin, meaning the most important. And so most important are the tell of the lectora, of the lichens, what they said, the phone and say, what they says. And then to distress them, and then half, H-A-P-H-A-F, the half are nessus, N-E-S-C-S, nessus is to nessus, that you may kill, you may murder. Distress them, half are nessus on rappa. Rappa is dirty, dirt, mud, dirty. Distress them, half are nessus on rappa, annul of if, the pival on. To annul of if, annul to cancel out, U-N-O-L, and then A-V-I-F, of if. The pival on. The pival is a tree. The tree on. And then the N-E is a B. N-J-A-L, and the K-E is an L. And gel, J-A-L-L, and then K. Angelic, lay in. The tree on, angelic, lay in. And that's what it looks like. It just looks angelic when you see these live oaks covered with the Spanish moss down here. So this having broken, is coming from annul, to cancel out, to break the engagement, annul of. And then began to weep, that's the angelic of laying, the trees are weeping. So this word grammatize, I notice most of the time it comes up, it's the scribes and Pharisees. Except that's definitely not Pharisees. Most of the time it comes up, and that's the way it comes up. Scribes and Pharisees. And often coming after this word with 4 vowels in it they call woe. And this is just going to be more proof on my theory of the apostrophe. When it's in the middle of the word here, you read it the O, and you turn around to the I, and then the A-V-A-Y. And so this pronounces oi, to draw attention to, oi of vey, V-A-Y, oi of vey, they say is woe. And you'll see this over there on Brooklyn Bridge, oi vey. And they say it means oh, woe. But I think it means more, the O-I is oi, to draw attention to, a call to draw attention. And it's more like obey, O-V-A-Y. The V and the B are the same letter in Hebrew. And call attention to obey. And then this word reads U-M-I-M, homom, and then Nemu. And Nemu means to carry, to shoulder. The one who has the chair, the Nemu. The Nemu. It's similar to Namu, but it's Nemu. It means to carry, to shoulder, to bear, to endure, take charge of, assign someone to a post, an office, post, or position. The one in the chair. And so it's hoi, obey, homom, nemu, who's in charge. And the grammatize, to write it into law, to the fair is say. Who says what is fair? F-A-R-I-S. What fair is. What fair is say. And then the A moves over A-O-I. Ahoy again, as in ahoy, as in to call attention. So there is no Pharisees here. The Pharis is here, but that's a A-I-O-I. And they make all this up. The C's comes from the I's over here. The grammatize, to write it into law. And so what it says is hoy, hey you, obey. Obey whom in Nemo, who was put in charge of to grammatize, to write the laws, to what fair is say. And that's the same place where your word Pharaoh is coming from. The one who says what's fair, the one who's writing into laws. And then this hypocrite down here. This is hypo, meaning under, and then the critia is the cratic, the govern, to govern. And that's coming from the cratic, from Pallades, the Vedic name for Pallades. And that's because when the Vedas were written and when the book of Jah was written, Pallades is where the sun was sitting at Easter. And so that's where everything was governed off of. All the names of the stars, all the positions were governed off of Pallades. And so that doesn't make sense at all, because a hypocrite is one who thinks he's above the law. But hypo is under, the hypo under the law, what the grammatize to what fair is says, how is under the law. But then it reads again backwards, the hypocrity. Hypocrity adder cop, what at it. The hypocrity adder, the serpent cop. And then W-O-T, what it to paragate, to go around the gate, you traverse, to go around the gate. Then the lashes on within, W-T-H-N, the lashes on, not the C but the beating taken, the lashes on within, it's here on the X, the T-S, 'tis here on the poi, his say, the poi, the mouth, the poi, and then H, move the I over his say, the poia say, and then N of, E-N, and then A, and the N-E is a V, N of force held with on, the force held with on, the force held with on, the force held on you, force held it on, what on it too. The hypocritic cop he's got the power, the force hell it on, what on it too. To force the hell on you. What on it too, the Gentile, the Goyim, the Gentiles. And then this I-E-I, I believe that's a sign like the K-E being the L and the N-E being the B. I believe this I-E-I replaces a R-I, a I-R-I. and the poi, the mouth, right, on ought what on, what you ought to do. The mouth right, on ought what on, to vio, to go on hoy, to draw attention to jinns. The jinns was the evil genes, the evil genies. And dipple, the little markings under the Hebrew letters to replace the toyas that were put in the Greek, to add number value. And the poi right, on ought what on, to voy annoy, to go annoy the jinns. And the dipple at Huron, to mom namu, to the mother of all. So how I found this, I was looking at this word odontes, they say is having seen, but your odontes is your teeth. And that's when I run into this word Pharisees. You see it spelled different now. And it's ahoy, grammatize, to write into law, totin, the grammatize, totin, the fair is say on, totin is fair is say on, and then settin added on it, settin added on it. That's the last couple movies I was talking about, what they added to the Bible for the change of time, settin added on it. Ahoy, grammatize, totin fair is say on. Settin added on it is, adding on it is. Add a toy, the toy writes is theory. This I-E-I turns into a I-R-I. Add a toy, the toya is to play with the tojos. Tojos being the last two letters added. Add a toy writes R-I. Replace the E with a R when it's between the two I's. The R-I-T-E-S, the rights, and then is theory, T-H-I-R-Y. The rights is theory, metaton. Metaton is the metatonic cycle of the moon. And then Amar toll all. Amar, the word toll all. Move the L over, toll all. The null et Rama. The null at seeing. And so what that means, the null at seeing, is it's added to the number value, but it's not it's not pronounced in the word. The amars, the word, the toll on, the toll all, null, to cancel out at Rama, at seeing, to telling on. And so the mark here is moving the N over, so it's the telling, and then on, O-N-N is clouds, to telling clouds. And I'm not real sure about on being the clouds. There's an old picture and describing, the picture had words on it, and the on was up above. So it doesn't necessarily mean it was the clouds. It might have been something else that it was pointing at. The on means above in the oldest Semitic language, A-N. And you also have, the tel, anon, no name, anonymous. And so as confusing as all that is, what I'm getting from it is telling me to not read the tojos that were added to the end of the word. It only has to do with the mathematics, when you're a astrologer. It only has to do with the number value, but the story, you get the story without reading the tojos. Thus the Septuagint, is the septu is this what's between your nostrils to separate the separate agent, interpretum. And coming from the Greek, the metaphrases, within phrases taught, and then the bottom count. The bottom count, that means, was the seventh. And then the mark here tells you to read this backwards. The bottom count at knock'em, add in ODB, add in the. And so a knock'em is said to mean vengeance. The knock'em, to avenge, to take vengeance. From the old venger, meaning to avenge. From the Latin vindicare, meaning to protect, to avenge, or to punish. Protect as in to inoculate. I think it's coming more as introduce into a culture medium. To introduce something, into, and I don't believe they got this oculus right. I think it's more as like engrafted, and added on. To graft a bud or a shoot into a different plant, to add on. So it was more to protect the writings, to knock them, to protect them by adding on, to add in, so the old writings would still be good. To add in, E is life, to add in life. And the metaphrases of the bottom count at, to knock them, to protect, add in life. And according to the legend, 72 Jewish scholars were asked by Ptolemy, the Greek pharaoh, to translate the Torah from Hebrew to Greek for the inclusion of the Library of Alexandria. And this narrative is found in the pseudepigraphic letters. The pseudepigraphic are falsely attributed works. The pseudo, another name of the graphic, the figure, a representation of, not the real, of the graphic, of the writings, the fig. So in the Septuagint, when you figure out which of these letters are just the tojos added for number value, you can read it without them. So, it'd be like with at immortal, at Rama, at CN, what tell on, and gel, what tell on gel, angle, ANGEL, the angle, allege, to, the math, it to add it to, at what, audit, to met at, tell on, to immortal, it has, this, they. And that's telling me that there was an older version of the Greek Bible that didn't have all these tojos added on it. So if you could find it, you could figure out real easy which of these words have the tojos, what the tojos are, and which words will read fully. But I'd bet it has a lot to do with this wave that comes up often in the last two letters, the on and the is. And so that's what made this New Testament really confusing, because they were trying to take the words from the Septuagint that had the tojos added on. And so, if this isn't a tojo, if this reads to make and then RITES, the rights, his theory is history. And I'm going to look some more at that word, but it only comes up two ways with this IEI in it. The only thing these words have in common is the STI, and they'll all be read forwards and backwards with the mark. But this is the only times it comes up with this EIE together. And so sometime it finishes with an N. And this often comes up at the end. What I noticed most is this last time it come up in Hebrews, in this interpretation, they give this whole line all capitals. And that was enough to get me to go look at it. But my program's loading up is really slow.
Don't forget, I won't forget.
Alright, I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.